Survival on Purpose coverage of the 2020 SHOT Show is sponsored by Hog Holsters and Olight Flashlights. Welcome back to Survival on Purpose coverage of the 2020 SHOT Show, and it just would not be the same without talking to Craig from Tops Knives. They've got some new stuff out next year. One of them I'm really excited about. We'll take that in just a second. But Craig, thanks again as always for taking a minute. Man, you're a busy guy. These shows, if you're watching these interviews from different channels on these shows, everybody here is wide open busy, and sometimes you just got to, people are just kind enough to give you a minute of their time, and I really appreciate it. Because you got a lot of new knives this year. We picked out like 4 of them to show you. You've got guys probably another 29 brand new models.
We have 19 new SKUs.
That's a pretty good guess.
19 new models on that table, yeah.
And plus all the others. I mean, how many total SKUs you got right now, you think?
Total that I brought here to the show, which should be everything, is 274, I believe is what it was.
Right. And we may have talked about this before we get to look at the knives, but you guys do you work with a lot of different knife designers.
We do.
To create their designs plus your own in-house designs. So some of your knives are straight up all Tops designs, and some of them, like there's a knife that Joe Flowers did, there's a knife that Matt Graham did, there's a knife that Andy Tran did. There's knives that just so many people do for you guys, and so
yeah, we've worked with over 50 designers throughout the years,
and I think that speaks volumes of your quality, that people who can take their designs anywhere and come to you for them.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're trying to do this year on the channel is focus on more made in the USA products. And that's something I always liked about Tops Knives, is they're just 100% made in the USA.
Here we are.
There you go. So anyway, we'll take a look. We'll start with this itsy bitsy little thing here. I think I'll sit it down here where you get a little better shot of it. But I think it's pretty cool. And this, speaking of Joe Flowers, you said this knife was designed by the guy that he goes to Amazon trips with in the Amazon.
Yeah, so his, I guess business partner for the Bushcraft Global trips.
Right.
His name is Goran. I'm going to murder his last name, but I think it's like Mihajlovic. This guy's from Serbia. He's been all over the world. He lives in Colombia, in the middle of the jungle. He speaks like 5 languages. He's always been a knife guy. Even when he was a little kid. When I went down there with Joe, he was telling stories about when I was this age and when I was that, and they're all knife stories. So the guy is this is just what he does. So 2 or maybe 3 years ago, we released the Tanimboka Puko, which was his design for us. It's a Puko, about a 3.5 inch blade, kind of that typical Puko handle, but with a top style, full tang micarta handles.
Yep.
And last year he sent us a small sample of this one. He makes knives out in the jungle. No power tools, just all by hand. He's forging, he's using basically like files and saws and things like that, and that's how he's making knives. So he sent a sample of this little guy to us, and Leo was just like, I like it. So we're gonna make it. Basically, you're looking at a little bit over 4 inches overall length. Overall. The blade's like 2. So the handle's about 2. So you're talking like a 2, maybe a 3-finger knife. But this is a whittler, this is a carver, this is like, I'm hanging around on the campsite, I gotta do some simple stuff. That's what you're gonna use this for. You're clearly not processing firewood, things like that. But it's just, I don't know, there's something about this that was just, we liked it.
But for me, talking about processing firewood, what leads out at me was the fact that this looks like it's about an Altoid 10 size knife. And certainly you're not going to baton logs and stuff with this, but if you're looking for a really small survival kit style knife that's more than a razor blade or a scalpel blade or something you can get a hold of, it's got a good size handle on it, and it's got a good blade on it because it's Tops knife steel, that's good. Full tang, it's going to be something you can actually probably functionally use in a very, very small survival kit that would be solid. You don't have to worry about snapping it. You don't have to worry about cutting your fingers with it, like you're trying to use a little scalpel blade or something.
Yeah.
It's just a functional blade.
I haven't measured it, but I bet at least diagonally that would.
That's what I'm thinking. I think it would too. If it didn't, it'd come real close. And there's a lot of people are selling a little bit bigger tins now and stuff.
True.
So the point being, this could be a really you can create a very small survival kit, and this could be a good component of it, because I think that's one thing that's really hard to get in those micro kits, is a really usable, solid knife. I think that's pretty cool. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that one.
And for everybody out there that just has to have a 90-degree spine, we did do that on this one.
Oh, so it's also a striker.
You know, if that's a requirement for you, this one fits the bill.
That's kind of unusual too for tops, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, because typically we do a differential heat treat on our 1095 blades.
Right.
So the edge is hard and the spine is soft.
Right.
So the reason we don't grind most of them off is because even if we did, you'd be able to get sparks off of a few throws, but it's going to start rounding almost immediately. Right. Because it's just not hard enough to stay sharp for very long.
Yeah, so I imagine on blade this small, it's almost impossible to do a differential heat treat.
Now, on that one, maybe like a little bit of the core might be a little bit softer, but for the most part, it's all hardened. And the ones that we do the 90-degree spine on, we actually change the heat treat a little bit so the spines are harder. Yeah. They're not quite as hard as the edge, but they're harder than our others. Right. And so it is functional. Like the Puko, the full-size Puko, also has a 90-degree spine. Works just fine.
That's cool. So then we got. I picked this one. I just thought this was a cool knife. It's this is a prototype.
This one is a prototype. Yeah. So this was designed by a guy named David Holliday. He's kind of one of the OG bushcrafter guys out there. He's like Matt Graham and him, I think, know each other. I don't know if they're good friends or not, but I think this guy lives in Utah, southern Utah, but I think he's from Arizona. So the name of the knife is the Sonoran, kind of after the desert. Right. This guy is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to primitive skills, bushcrafting, survival. When I called to get a hold of him about the design and try to make sure that everything was good for the show, he was out in the boonies, and I talked to his wife, and she was telling me, I was expecting him back today. I haven't heard from him yet, and she was not worried at all. Most wives, if you're not back where you're supposed to be, they're like, the fire department's looking for you, search and rescue's out there. But she was totally fine. She's like, I'm sure he'll turn up, And then later that day, it might have been the next day, he gave me a call, but it was just, that's who he is. She just expected him to be out in the boonies. And so anyway, all that aside, he's got kind of his own unique style and how he wants things. We're probably actually going to round the spine on this one a little bit rather than doing any kind of a 90-degree angle, because that's what he's wanting out of it. He said he'd rather have it a little bit radiused than anything.
When you can make a fire with a stick, you don't really care about 90.
You don't really need a striker. Yeah. So this guy, we're probably going to do that. It's kind of a Puko type shape. It's got more of a clip than most of them you would see. We may even go a little bit more on that clip on this one. The prototype has tan G10 handles. We're not 100% if we're going to stick with those or not. The handle's probably going to get extended a little bit. There's some tweaks to make still. This was the very first one that we made. So there's not like a second or a third round of prototypes on this like some of our other models would have. But we liked it so much, and we're excited that we're working with this guy because just his experience is crazy. Yeah. So 1095, differentially hardened. We haven't even talked about a sheath yet, but I don't know. I like this one. It's that clip. I like that. I don't know.
I liked it too. It's like it's one of the ones that drew my eye. It just looks good.
It does. And the guy that designed it, like I say, he's been doing this for probably as long as I've been alive, and he probably knows what's working and what's not.
I see from the guys that are like primitive, those guys that spin it, they typically go towards smaller knives.
They do.
They don't, like this one. This is a good old redneck like me likes this knife,
right?
But this is I see. I guess because if you got enough skill, you don't need as much tool.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I also notice a lot of them go not just smaller, but a lot of them want to go thinner too. Yeah, which is it makes sense. I mean, if you're walking a lot of miles, the less ounces, the better.
Yeah. So this, on the other hand, is the other extreme, and I like this one. I just couldn't help it. So tell us a little bit about this bad boy
So
here.
this was designed by Johnny Sai. I think you know him.
I've heard the name, Johnny Sai.
Johnny Sai. He's a writer. He's written for several magazines out there. He's a martial artist.
Yeah.
He's done some survival school as well, I believe. He's got a lot of experience in areas that are not necessarily connected. The survivalist and the martial artist aren't necessarily hanging out together. Anyway, he designed this one. He was like, "Hey, you guys don't have a sword." We were like, "No, we don't necessarily want a sword." But he sent us a drawing. It looks good. It looks really good.
Yeah.
So we made the prototype last year, showed it off. People liked it. We decided, you know what? Let's give it a shot, see what happens.
Let's call it a machete.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. If you don't like swords, call it a machete. Basically, it's 1/4 inch thick. It's 24. I think it's right at 24 inches overall length. This one has been a little bit tricky getting the heat treat right, because that differential heat treat leaves the spine a little too soft.
Yeah.
So we've been playing around trying to get enough hardness without getting it too brittle. I think we got that dialed in. We've had to do some weight reduction with the fullers on it. There's been a lot of work going into making this thing usable, not just like a novelty piece.
Right.
So pretty excited. It's gonna be cool. It's called the Kuma Kaje. Kaje, I believe, has something to do with martial arts, and it might even just come from the G.I. Joe series. So the guy that designed this, one of his other designs was in a G.I. Joe comic book years ago, and so he was kind of going along with the same lines with this. And then Kuma is basically the name of his brand.
Okay.
So
and then it's got this really wicked little thingy at the end of it down here.
Yeah. It's not sharpened, but it is kind of a false edge striker type.
It looks like it would hurt.
And there's enough weight on this. I think it would hurt no matter what.
Yeah.
It doesn't even need to be sharp.
You can survive with the back of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But now after the initial tease, but if I had a drum, I'd give you a drum roll now. But we got something that really and truly, the very first knife I ever reviewed, by the way, was Bob. And I remember reading the instructions saying, "Do not throw this knife," right? And I would never throw a knife. Well, I heard you talking to Andy Tran earlier about this knife.
Yes.
And I heard that word "throw" come into play.
You did.
I did hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one was designed by Leo, who designs most of our knives now. He's the president of the company, running the show. The thing about Leo is he can design anything. So, I think it was time. He's been wanting to do one of these for about 3 years that he's been talking about it. Like, I want to get a throwing knife. We're finally going to get it done. So this basically was designed to throw.
I like it a lot.
It's a good looking knife. Man. It's a good looking knife. The top edge on this one is sharpened, but we are going to make that an option so that people who live in an area where they can't will still be able to get one. And in fact, I think the default option will be not sharpened on the top.
Those of us who live in a free America can get a double edge.
Yes, correct. Or at least free-ish.
Yeah, there you go.
So we start with the coolest thing, in my opinion, about this one isn't just that it's designed for throwing and all the good lines and everything. The coolest part is that we have a distal taper on this, and that you don't really see on production knives.
No, you don't at all.
If it's made by machine, there's none that I can think of off the top of my head. There may be some out there, but it's just not a common thing. So we did find a way to take this from a 1/4 inch down to 1/8 of an inch at the pommel, and we might even try to take a little bit more off so that we can get the balance right. I think right now it's a little bit too handle heavy. So if we can thin that out just a little bit more, I think we're gonna have it dialed in.
I mean, it feels really, really good.
Yeah.
Like when I picked it up, I just thought, it screams to be balance tested. This thing is really just, and not just that. It's also unlike like purpose, like, you know, you buy a set of throwing knives or whatever, they're just nothing but blank piece of steel.
Yeah.
It's a usable blade, right? It's got a sharpened edge on it.
Correct.
It's got a little finger choil here. It's got a nice, comfortable handle.
Yeah,
It's something you could use this for a knife and not just for a dart.
Yep. And we definitely, I mean, we've got to give a shout out to Jason Johnson. We picked his brain a lot at Blade Show. We've been talking to him a lot about this, and hopefully we'll have more coming with him. But you know, he gave us a lot of pointers, and that's what's cool about the knife industry is everybody's willing to share what they know.
Yeah.
You know, and in a lot of other industries, it's not like that.
I met him yesterday, and he gave me a couple of pointers on throwing.
Yeah,
He's phenomenal.
Oh,
I mean, he's just like
he's a machine. He's a machine.
he's like throwing darts, man.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
he's also been telling us that he can teach anybody to throw like he does.
Yeah.
That kind of instinctive throwing.
Yeah.
And that would be really cool for me because I don't know how to do it.
Me too. I know. Me too.
I'll throw knives, but I don't know what I'm doing.
Me too. That's what I said. I told him I'm a one-trick pony. You know, I can stand back and get the distance right and make it stick, but he does that no-spin throw, which is like
That's crazy.
That's really cool.
That's so crazy.
And he was sticking knives in like that deep in a piece of 2x6 too. So.
Oh yeah, no, he's not just tossing it. He's got some speed behind him. He's pitching them.
Yeah. So I find this stuff really interesting. I find if it's got an edge, I find it interesting. So
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So
pretty much.
Greg, thanks again, man. As always, it's a pleasure.
Agreed.
And thanks again for watching Survival on Purpose coverage of the 2020 SHOT Show. Remember, survival's not an accident, so be prepared. I'll see you next time.